So thank you to the World Federation of Music Therapy for inviting me to be a spotlight speaker this year. It's such an honour. But I guess this isn't exactly the way I thought I'd be delivering my speech. But here we are, life is full of surprises. So I know that when most people present at a conference, they report on their research findings or share clinical examples of their work. But I wanted to do something a little bit different today. I want to talk about my experiences of setting up, engaging in, and managing large-scale clinical trials. I'm going to report on some of the challenges I've encountered, and I certainly want to touch on some of the triumphs that I've experienced during my research journey. And I'm going to do this by describing my involvement in 2 separate studies that I'm currently leading. So I want to start by first introducing the National Health and Medical Research Council grant-funded project, the Medell Study, which is an international multi-site study looking at the effects of music interventions on depression and neuropsychiatric symptoms of people living with dementia and residing in aged care homes. The full international trial is being led by my dear colleague, Professor Christian Gold from Norway. However, Australia was the first country to receive funding in 2017, and the other 5 countries are yet to commence the trial, although they all now have funding to do so. As we have been working away at this trial for 2.5 years already, we have really been pioneering the study on behalf of the whole international team. And we're proud to say that as of March this year, before Covid-19, we had recruited 397 participants. Just briefly, the trial tests the effectiveness of group music therapy, recreational choir singing, or both, and compares their impact with standard care over 6 months. In addition to examining the effects on depression and behavioural symptoms of dementia, the trial tracks changes in medication use, the quality of life of residents, it measures the burden experienced by staff, and captures the cost effectiveness and cost benefits of delivering the interventions in the home care setting. In the trial, the group music therapy aims to provide person-centred care with a focus on biography and regulating arousal. It includes singing, listening, improvisation, dancing and movement, reminiscence, and verbal reflection. And the intervention is delivered by a qualified music therapist. Recreational group singing, however, is conducted within a non-therapeutic context. It focuses on singing only and is delivered by a person other than a trained music therapist, for example, a community musician or a musically skilled nurse. In the study, homes, or what we call sites, were cluster randomised into one of those 4 conditions. We made a strategic decision to select homes where there was no music therapy currently being delivered, as we wanted to use this trial as an opportunity to advocate for music therapy services. And rather than selecting individual homes, we selected 4 large home care providers that between them housed 25,000 residents in Australia. We met with the CEO or medical director of each organisation, who had responsibility for managing multiple homes within their organisations. This decision stemmed from our assumption that if we had buy-in from the top of the organisation, then there was a greater chance that commitment and buy-in would filter down to the care home level as well. This strategy certainly proved to be a good one, as when there were issues, we were able to communicate with those at the management level. That said, we have been fortunate to have sustained great relationships with all our care homes to date. And these relationships were critical and helped us ensure recruitment was efficient. Staff were proactive in arranging opportunities for us to present information at family meetings, and the staff talked up the value and importance of the study with families and residents in their day-to-day interactions with them. At each site, care home managers had a designated site coordinator who was our go-to person, ensuring smooth delivery and implementation of our project. Despite these incredible efforts by the homes, this project was definitely not a walk in the park. In fact, the sheer number of obstacles blocking our journey far surpassed our expectations. So let's just have a brief look at a couple of these. Well, firstly, as one would expect, perhaps the biggest impact on our study has been COVID-19. At the time of its impact, we had been running music therapy interventions for approximately 15 months. We had provided 894 music intervention sessions across 20 care homes. The COVID-19 lockdown meant that we could not finish the music interventions in cycle 5 that we'd started. So residents would not attend the minimum number of sessions needed to say they had received enough of the intervention to remain included in our study. That means 66 participants will drop out because of COVID-19. We will not be able to complete data collection for cycle 3 and potentially cycle 4 either. And cycle 6 was just about to commence, and it is unlikely to go ahead now as the project was due to wind up in May 2022. But as we soon discovered, lockdowns were quite common, something we did not really anticipate when developing our clinical trial design. Gastro and influenza outbreaks are represented in this diagram by these symbols. And in some homes, lockdowns occurred multiple times, sometimes for more than 3 weeks at a stretch. These lockdowns greatly affected how many intervention sessions were provided, and as mentioned before, whether the minimum number of sessions were provided. Lockdowns also occurred during times when we were supposed to carry out our assessments. The impact here was that the assessment periods were out of sync with their planned period and caused violation of the study protocol. Another factor we didn't prepare for was the amount of wait time our assessors had when trying to collect data for residents and care home staff. Owing to the workload of care staff, our research team were expected to wait extraordinarily long periods for care staff to be available to complete the psychometric tests. This resulted in a large number of days between the first person being assessed at any one home and the last person. To reduce these wait times and expedite the assessment process, we decided to invest and buy additional staff members to assist the homes to complete their work on the days that we were there to collect data. And you will see here that the yellow bars are the waiting times our team had at each site. The ones circled in red were those where we paid for additional staff to be on site while we completed the assessments. And you can just see how much the waiting time was reduced compared when we employed additional personal care staff when we didn't employ care staff during the first 2 cycles. And this all resulted in a reduced number of days spent assessing at each site. We wish we'd thought of this strategy much earlier. So now let's go on to the next project, and this is Homeside. It focuses on indirect models of music therapy, where we train family carers of people living with dementia at home to use music in strategic and targeted ways to support well-being. The Homeside program aims to assist carers to manage their loved ones' symptoms and thereby keep them living at home with their families for as long as possible. It aims to enhance the carers' well-being, to provide them with opportunities for meaningful engagement, and to reduce the economic impact of an increasing ageing population. Homeside uses a purposefully developed music therapy-informed intervention to coach family carers to use music in a more purposeful way. It incorporates Kit Wood's model of personhood and person-centred dementia care and emphasises communication and relationships, It also recognises that dementia is best understood as an interplay between neurological, psychosocial, and environmental factors. So the idea of this study started way back in 2006, when I secured some money to develop and pilot a home-based program for couples where one spouse was living with dementia. After publishing the pilot, I tried 3 times to secure funding for a fully fledged trial, but with no success. So I shelved the project for a few years to pursue some other research interests, until another opportunity to fund this research showed itself to me. So in 2018, together with wonderful colleagues from Norway, the UK, Germany and Poland, we secured funding for an international trial. And in the wonderful words of the late Professor Tony Wigram, we thought it was such a triumph. There are 3 arms to this study: a music intervention, a reading intervention and standard care. Carers receive a 2-hour training session with 2 follow-up sessions 3 and 6 weeks after the initial session. And the sessions show them how to use music or reading in targeted ways to manage symptoms and support the maintenance of meaningful relationships. Carers are then asked to use the music and reading activities with the person with dementia 5 times a week for 12 weeks. As you can probably imagine, with a trial conducted in 5 countries and with a target sample of 495 carers and 495 people with dementia, this is a mammoth undertaking, starting with managing 5 incredibly large and dynamic teams. First, we have the Australian team. Then we have the Polish team and the UK team. And then the German team and the Norwegian team, all just beautiful people. But Homeside was a very different beast to Medell and required a lot more planning, something that ended up taking us almost a year from woe to go. Some tasks took much longer than we had anticipated. For example, we needed a signed consortium agreement among the 5 universities. We couldn't actually access any money before we'd done that. The agreement covered all sorts of issues, including IP, data management and liability. And the legal teams engaged us in a backwards and forwards process until we finally got agreement amongst the 5 countries. Consequently, some countries' monies were more delayed in reaching them than others, and this resulted in a staggered start for the project. The UK, Australian and German teams had their money in April, whereas the Norwegians waited until September and the Polish team not until December. So this makes managing our timelines for the project quite challenging. So after the consortium agreement, we then had to register the trial, develop the trial database and apply for ethics. Again, country differences in regulations led to a lot of toing and froing. And with the EU's new General Data Protection Regulation, or otherwise known as the GDPR, coming into effect in May this year, the stricter data protection laws in some countries meant we had to sign additional legal contracts regarding data privacy. Our Redcap database had to be built from scratch and was designed to capture all data right from any inquiry from a potential participant through to participant screening, recording of adverse events, home visit safety checks, delivery of interventions, and data from all the psychometric measures that we used. Indeed, building and testing the database, which had about 1,400 items, took about 9 months. And even after it went live, we still discovered some missing items and also made some more tweaks along the way. The sheer number of discussions just around, for example, how to record age was challenging. Some countries could only put in an age range, like from 60 to 65 and 66 to 70, where others could only put in year of birth. Others could put in the actual date of birth. So it went on a bit till we found a solution that met everybody's data protection regulations. Lots of things to think about, but an incredibly sophisticated database that enabled us to track everything from our first to our last encounter with every participant. Next, we had to recruit and train our research staff. Everyone in the team had a specific role and had to be trained to perform that role. We created 43 training videos, which we loaded up on YouTube to accompany our 177-page handbook of procedures. All staff were required to review the videos, and they were then tested on their understanding of the content for every module. So the purpose behind this process was to ensure training was standardised and all had a shared and common understanding of the interventions, data collection processes, and overall delivery of the trial. Communication with 5 teams, 70 staff across 5 countries, and multiple time zones meant communication was sometimes a challenge for us. As its leader, it was important for me to facilitate a consultative process so all countries feel their views are heard and everyone is comfortable with the decisions made. We have worked hard to create a team culture of respecting difference, and there were and continue to be many of these. Meeting physically twice a year helps the team to connect and strengthen their shared vision, while also working intensively on sub-projects and making critical decisions about the trial's procedures. We also use email, of course, and we also meet fortnightly online to work on issues and monitor the project. The highly complex nature of the trial creates additional challenges. As a leader, I'm expected to be across the evolution of the trial and monitor its progress at the international level rather than purely at a local level. It's often difficult for me to hold all this in my head while also splitting my time between other university duties. My team is very patient with me when I forget some of these small details. They're quite kind to me when they remind me. We all know that burden on participants can lead to attrition or to low participant uptake. And we've been conscious all the time to try to and balance the need to collect rich and detailed data with the need to minimise participant burden. We have really tried to get this balance right. We haven't yet had any dropouts due to burden, but it's fair to say, I think, that some of the potential participants may not have taken up opportunities to participate because they were not confident they could manage to commit to the time that was required of them. And then there's the cost of delivering a trial, which is enormous. Consider just the impact of Covid-19 on the Medell Study. 83 participants had been screened and recruited, ready to begin, but the homes went into lockdown before that was possible. Another 65 participants had received less than half the planned intervention, so won't meet our minimum adherence even if Covid-19 resolves quickly. This is at an enormous cost for data we can no longer use. Delays caused by the long period taken to develop the Homeside database also uses our budget, which was supposed to be allocated to the implementation of the study. This delay affected the starting date for our recruitment in 3 of the countries. Staff recruitment and training also costs money, so the delay in commencing recruitment led some of our fully trained staff to find other work, thereby requiring us to recruit and train new staff, something we didn't anticipate or budget for. More learning for us. We have found that each country and each partner is different. We've had to learn how to work together. We've focused on establishing a consensus about each other's roles and responsibilities so that lines of communication and decision-making are clear and the potential for conflict is minimised. Miscommunication has occurred from time to time, often due to language differences. But we are acknowledging this and have now created a communication culture that is honest but also respectful. Another learning for us has been how to assist our interventionists to transition from a clinician to a research clinician. following an intervention protocol strictly with fidelity rather than being more spontaneous and shifting to a therapeutic process that isn't part of the study intervention has certainly been challenging for some of our clinicians. Our supervision at both country and international levels are being utilised to monitor this. And now just to finish with a couple more highlights. Well, I have to say that working with a terrific team has been nothing short of just sensational. There's a clear group spirit among us, and we are working towards a common goal. And the team's diversity in perspectives, alongside their absolute commitment and collaborative presence, makes leading these trials such a joy. We are learning from one another and pooling our resources to deliver clinical trials on a scale unimaginable without our combined effort. And of course, much learning and pleasure is derived from our engagement with our consumer advisory committees, and not forgetting those who are most important of all, our participants, who continue to be a source of learning and inspiration for all of us. So in closing, I hope that while I haven't shared any research results as such, that I've taken you on a little bit of a journey about what my experiences are in leading and managing large-scale randomised controlled trials. They are challenging, and I've laid awake many nights wondering how on earth am I going to solve this problem. The trials and tribulations are indeed significant and unfortunately relatively common. But the rewards, the triumphs, these far outweigh these challenges, and are what get me out of bed every day. No doubt I'm going to do this again and again and again until I retire. Thank you.